3 Grindr app horror stories. Story 1. The Watcher. The night was a familiar blanket of quiet city hums and the soft glow of a street lamp filtering through the blinds. Mark was settled into his usual Friday routine. A cheap beer, a bad movie, and an endless scroll through Grindr. The app was a comfort, a distraction, a shallow pool of faces and fleeting connections. He wasn't looking for anything serious, just a little validation or maybe a quick chat to pass the time. That's when he saw it. A profile with no picture. Not a blank placeholder, but a dark, grainy space where a photo should be. The username was simple, unnerving in its plainness. Watcher. Mark scoffed. Edgy. He was about to swipe past, but the profile's tagline caught his eye. It read, "I see you." It was a standard line used by countless anonymous profiles trying to be mysterious. Mark, feeling a little rebellious from the beer, decided to poke the bear. He tapped the profile and sent a message. "See me where?" He typed, a smirk on his face. The reply was instantaneous. "On your couch. Under the blanket you're kicking off." Mark froze. He looked down. He had in fact just kicked the edge of his plaid blanket off his feet. A sudden cold knot of unease tightened in his stomach. It was a coincidence, he told himself. A lucky guess. He was in a big city. People were always on their phones, watching TV. It wasn't that strange, he messaged back, trying to sound nonchalant. "Okay, very funny. You must be in my building. What floor?" The response came a few agonizing seconds later. "Floor 4, the one with the faded blue door." Mark's blood ran cold. He lived on the 4th floor. His door was a faded, chipped blue. He lived in a complex of 100 units. How could this person know? He frantically swiped through the profile's location data. It was just listed as being nearby. Mark's heart started to pound. This wasn't a game anymore, he typed with shaking hands. "Who is this? This isn't funny." The Watcher didn't reply with words. A picture popped up in the chat. It was a photo of the long gray hallway just outside Mark's apartment. He could see the faint yellow light from his own window reflecting on the opposite wall. The image was perfectly still, the angle suggesting the person was standing close to his door. A suffocating wave of panic washed over him. He gripped his phone, his knuckles white. He needed to get out. He needed to call the police. He stood up, his legs wobbly, and took a step toward the door, then stopped. What if they were listening? What if they could hear his movements? The silence of his apartment felt like a living thing, a predator waiting for him to make a sound. Another message arrived. This time a voice note. Mark's heart hammered against his ribs. He pressed play, his ear close to the phone. A low, distorted whisper came through the speaker. It was just 3 words repeated over and over, tap, tap, tap. It was the sound of a fingernail tapping on wood. Mark could hear it. He could hear it right now. From his door. A gentle, insistent tapping, barely audible but unmistakable. He jumped back, stumbling over the coffee table. He backed away from the door, his eyes wide with terror. The tapping stopped. His phone buzzed again with a new message. "Now I know you're in there. Don't worry. I'll get to you." Mark's mind raced. The windows. He lived on the 4th floor. The fire escape was right outside his bedroom. He could climb down. He could get away. He had to. He crept across the living room, his bare feet silent on the worn hardwood floors. The tapping started again, louder this time. A rhythmic, mocking beat. He fumbled with the bedroom door handle, his hand slick with sweat. He yanked it open, slipped inside, and locked it behind him. He didn't bother to turn on the light. The faint street lamp glow was enough. He ran to the window, the old sash moaning as he pushed it open. The night air was cool on his face, a shock to his heated skin. He climbed out onto the metal platform of the fire escape, his phone still clutched in his hand. The tapping stopped. He looked back at his window. He could see his own terrified face reflected in the glass. The thought of what was inside the apartment, what was standing just outside his bedroom door, made him want to vomit. His phone vibrated again. A picture. This time, it was a close-up of his own reflection in the window. The reflection was distorted, but he could clearly see the shadow of a person, a tall, faceless figure standing just behind him inside the room. Mark didn't hesitate. He dropped his phone and scrambled down the fire escape. His hand scraped raw on the cold metal. He didn't look back. He didn't stop until his feet hit the pavement. He ran into the street screaming, looking for a cop car, an open store, anything. He never went back to the apartment. He stayed with a friend for a week before moving to a new city, a new state, a new life. He changed his name, his phone number, everything. But sometimes late at night when he's alone, he feels a prickle on the back of his neck. A chill that has nothing to do with the temperature. And he can almost hear it, a faint distant sound, tap, 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 and he knows somewhere out there, the watcher is still looking for him. Story 2. The doppelganger. It was a Tuesday afternoon and David was procrastinating on a paper. He was idly scrolling through his Grindr feed, looking at the usual assortment of profiles when he stopped. His heart gave a hard, painful lurch in his chest. He blinked, swiping back to the profile he'd just seen. He stared at it, his mind refusing to accept what his eyes were showing him. The profile picture was of him, not just a guy who looked like him, but him. It was a selfie he had taken just last week in his bedroom, with the same gray t-shirt and the same messy hair. The background was his wall, with the framed posters of his favorite bands. It was a photo he had never uploaded to Grindr. His breathing hitched. He checked the username, Alex. The profile description read, "Looking for a mirror." David's hands were shaking as he messaged the profile. "Who are you? Why do you have my picture?" He typed, his voice a tight knot in his throat. The reply was immediate. "It's not a picture of you, David, it's a picture of me." A cold dread seeped into David's bones. He stared at the name. It wasn't in his profile. He had never told anyone on this app his name. "How do you know my name?" "I know everything about you," Alex replied. "I know you're eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich right now. I know you're wearing blue socks with little white stripes. I know you have a tiny scar on your left knee from when you fell off your bike at age 7. I know you're wondering if this is a prank." David dropped his phone on the bed. His sandwich sat half-eaten on a plate next to him. He was wearing blue socks. The scar on his knee was from a fall when he was a kid. A deep primal terror seized him. This was not a prank. He picked up the phone again, his fingers numb. "This isn't real. You're lying. I'm not. We're two sides of the same coin, David. You and me. But only one of us can be the real one." "What are you talking about?" David typed, his voice cracking. "I'm talking about taking back what's mine. This life, this apartment, your friends, your family, your face. It all belongs to me. I've been looking for you for a long, long time." The messages continued, a chilling stream of intimate details about David's life. "Remember the time you cried watching that movie? The one about the dog? I remember that. You thought no one was watching, but I was. Remember the dream you had last night? The one about the ocean? I had it too." The words were like tiny knives, each one a fresh violation of his privacy, a new confirmation that this person was not just a stalker, but something far more sinister. David spent the rest of the day in a state of a quiet, creeping panic. He couldn't eat. He couldn't focus. He kept glancing at the windows at the door, expecting to see his own face staring back at him. He tried to block the profile, but a new one popped up instantly, with the same picture, the same name. "Alex is back," the new profile said. Finally, Alex sent a final, terrifying message. "I'm going to take you home with me, David. Your home. My home. The one where we belong. Meet me at the park at midnight. If you don't, I'll come for you." David was paralyzed with fear. Part of him wanted to call the police, but what would he say? "A guy on an app who looks exactly like me wants to steal my life." They'd think he was crazy. He felt a terrible, morbid curiosity. He had to know. Was it really him? At 11:55 p.m., David walked to the park. his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. The park was empty, the swings creaking softly in the wind. He stood under a lone street lamp, its flickering light casting long, dancing shadows. He felt a presence behind him. He spun around. Standing there was a man. He was dressed in the same clothes as David, the same t-shirt, the same jeans, the same shoes, and he had David's face. Every mole, every faint scar, every nuance of his expression. It was him. A perfect, terrifying replica. "Hello, David," his doppelganger said, and his voice was David's voice. It was like listening to a recording of himself. "How is this possible?" David whispered, his mind reeling. "The universe made a mistake," Alex said. "It created two of us. Two Davids living two separate lives. But the balance is off. We need to be one again. And I'm the one who's going to be here." Alex lunged forward and David was thrown off balance. They fell to the ground, a frantic, horrifying brawl of a man fighting himself. It was a surreal nightmare. Punching the doppelganger was like punching a mirror. David landed a punch on Alex's cheek and his own cheek throbbed with a phantom pain. Alex's hand closed around David's throat, and David felt like he was strangling himself. The struggle was disorienting, a blur of fists and limbs. David managed to get to his feet, a burst of primal adrenaline giving him strength. He pushed his doppelganger back, sending him stumbling into the shadows. He didn't wait to see if he was getting back up. He turned and ran, the sound of his own footsteps, his own gasping breaths echoing in his ears. He ran all the way home, locking the door behind him and barricading it with furniture. He sank to the floor, panting, his head in his hands. He was safe. He was safe. But was he? He went to the mirror and looked at his reflection. His face was bruised and cut, but the cuts were on the wrong side. He had a faint, dark smudge on his left cheek from a punch he had landed, but the wound was on his right. His eyes widened in horror. He had just fought himself, but was he the one who won, or had the reflection in the mirror always been the real him, and he had just been a copy, a shadow? He looked back at the door, then back at the mirror, and the reflection in the glass seemed to smile. Story 3. The game Chris was a creature of habit. His life was a neat little box of routines: work, the gym, dinner with his roommates, and late-night scrolling. He'd been on Grindr for years and had seen it all, or so he thought. One Thursday night, a new connection named Leo sent him a group chat invite. The group was called Night Owls. The profile picture was a simple, stylized image of a moon and stars. Curious, Chris accepted. The chat was populated by usernames like User 1, User 2, and User 3. Leo messaged Chris, "Hey, welcome to the group. We're just having some fun, playing a game. Want to join?" "What kind of game?" Chris asked. "A simple game of dares," Leo replied. "We're all here to have a little fun. You just get points for completing the dares. First one to 100 points wins a prize." It sounded harmless enough. Chris was bored. He figured he could play along for a while and then leave. The first dare came from User 1. "Go outside and take a picture of the first street sign you see." Easy. Chris grabbed his phone, went outside and snapped a picture of his street sign. He posted it to the chat. "Points," Leo replied. The dares continued. They were simple at first. Buy a stranger a coffee. Sing a song on a bus. Take a picture of yourself doing a handstand in a public place. Chris, along with the other users, completed them, laughing as they posted the proof. It was just a silly game, a way to pass the time. But then the dares started to change. The requests got more personal and a little more dangerous. User 2 dared him to go into your neighbor's yard and rearrange their gnomes. User 3 dared him to leave a single red rose on the doorstep of the person who lives in apartment 3B. "How do you know who lives in 3B?" Chris typed, a sudden prickle of alarm running up his spine. "We know everything," Leo replied. "It's part of the game. It's more fun when we know who we're playing with." Chris felt his stomach turn. He tried to ignore it, to write it off as an overreaction. But the next dare was far worse. User 1. Take a picture of a broken window. The window has to be one you just broke. Chris stared at the message, his blood running cold. He typed, "I'm out. This is too much." "Oh, you can't leave," Leo replied. "The game doesn't end until you win. Or lose." Chris tried to delete the app, but it wouldn't delete. He tried to block the other users, but they all had new profiles immediately. The chat was an inescapable black hole. He felt a frantic, claustrophobic panic begin to rise in his throat. "I know where you live, Chris," Leo wrote. "I know your address. I know you have a little sister who comes over every Saturday to watch movies with you. It would be a shame if something happened to her." The threat was clear. Chris felt a cold wave of fear wash over him. He was trapped. He couldn't go to the police. What would he say? That a bunch of strangers on an app were threatening him? It sounded insane. He was alone in this. The dares became darker, more sinister. Steal a package off a doorstep. A picture of you holding the package is proof. Go to a grocery store and swap 2 price tags on different items. Chris, with a trembling hand and a sick feeling in his stomach, did them. He was a good person, a quiet, simple guy. But now he was a thief, a vandal, a criminal. All because he had accepted a group chat invitation. He knew what the game was. It was a test. A way to see how far a person could be pushed, how much they would compromise their morality to save their own skin. Then came the final dare. The one that would end the game. User 3, go to the bridge downtown at midnight. Push the first person you see into the water. We'll be watching. Chris stared at the message. The prize, the points, the game, it all meant nothing now. This was murder. He couldn't do it. But what was the alternative? The image of his little sister, the threat to her safety, flashed in his mind. He sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, tears streaming down his face. He had to choose. The life of a stranger or the safety of his family. He thought about calling the police, but the threat was too real, too close. He knew they were watching him, that they were a step ahead of him. He was a pawn, and they were the chess masters. At 11:45 p.m., Chris walked to the bridge. The cold wind bit at his cheeks, but he barely felt it. He was a shell, an empty vessel. He leaned against the railing, staring into the dark water below. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A new message from Leo. "We're here. We're watching. Good luck." He looked around. There was no one on the bridge, not yet, but he knew someone would come. He looked at his phone, his finger hovering over the chat icon. He could reply. He could try to reason with them. He could beg, but he knew it was no use. The game had already been decided, and then he saw a shadow in the distance. A lone figure walking slowly towards him. He couldn't see their face, only their silhouette in the dim light. He felt a cold resolve settle over him. He had to do this. He had to protect his sister. He had to win the game. He took a deep, shuddering breath and watched the figure approach, knowing that by the time they reached him, his life and theirs would be forever changed by the terrible choice he was about to make.